When you hear the word accounting, I bet your mind immediately goes to spreadsheets, calculators, maybe even taxes. But forget all that for a second. I want you to think about accounting as something much, much older. Think of it as the ancient art of storytelling. Seriously, it's this universal language we humans came up with to tell one of the most important stories there is, the story of value. What we have, what we've managed to build, and where we're headed. And today, we're going to learn how to read it. So here's how we're going to do it. First, we'll start with a simple puzzle I like to call the goat farmer's problem. Then we're going to jump in a time machine and go from ancient clay tablets all the way to the cloud. After that, we'll ask a really important question. Who actually needs to know these stories? And we'll get into the rules of the game that are supposed to keep those stories true. Then we'll dig into the juicy stuff, the incredible power of accounting, but also its major pitfalls. And finally, we'll bring it all back home to see what all this means for your financial story. All right, let's start at the very beginning. I'm talking about a problem that is as old as civilization itself. Forget about massive corporations for a minute. Just picture a lone goat farmer somewhere thousands of years ago. This is where accounting was born, not in some stuffy classroom, but from a really simple, practical need to to know what you have and where you stand. So that brings us to the big question, right? How in the world do you take all the things that happen on a farm, the birds, the sales, the growth, the losses, and translate all of that into a clear story that's told with numbers? This is the fundamental challenge that accounting was invented to solve. Okay, let's walk through this together. Imagine our farmer starts with 10 goats. Simple enough. That's sentence number one of our story. Then life happens. 5 new kids are born. Awesome, the herd is growing. Next, our farmer goes to the market and sells 2 adult goats. So the first question is a piece of cake. How many goats are left? Well, you start with 10, you add 5, you subtract 2. That gives us 13 goats. But wait, here's the real leap. The most important question isn't just how many, it's what is my herd now worth? That little shift from just counting things to putting a monetary value on them, that, my friends, is where the magic of accounting happens. And just like that, with that one question, our farmer has become an accountant. Because really, that's all accounting is. It's the process of recording those events, the births, the sales, then summarizing them, and finally reporting them in a way that tells the economic story of that farm or of a giant company or even just your own household. It's the story of what you own, what you owe, and what you're ultimately worth. Now, our goat farmer might have just scratched a few marks on a piece of wood or a rock. And while the basic story we're telling, the story of value, hasn't changed one bit, the tools we use to tell it, well, they have evolved in ways that farmer could never have imagined. I mean, this need to keep track of stuff is truly ancient. We're talking over 5,000 years ago. In Mesopotamia, people were using these tiny little clay tokens to track their grain and their animals. Our goat farmer would have gotten that system instantly. Then we fast forward all the way to 1494 in Italy, where this monk, Luca Pacielli, writes down the rules for double entry bookkeeping. It's this brilliant idea that every transaction has two sides, a give and a take. And it is still the bedrock of all modern accounting today. Then things really pick up speed. In the 1980s, boom, we get spreadsheets, which took the old paper ledger and put it on a screen. And now, now cloud software does the whole thing automatically, in real time, all over the world. The tools are completely unrecognizable, but the story they tell is exactly the same. So who is the story actually for? I mean, it's not just for the farmer to keep tabs on his own herd. The second you start dealing with other people, banks, investors, maybe the government, your story suddenly has a much bigger audience, a very important audience that needs to understand what's going on. And what's so fascinating is that all these different people are reading the very same story, but they're all looking for something totally different. The owners and managers, they needed to make big decisions like should we buy more goats or maybe build a new barn? Investors are reading it to figure out if the farm is a profitable place to park their cash. The banks are looking at it to see if our farmer is a safe bet for a loan. The government, of course, needs it to calculate taxes. And hey, even the employees might want to peek at the numbers to see if their jobs are secure. It's one story with a whole bunch of different readers, each with their own questions. Okay, but with so many people relying on this one story, what happens if the farmer decides to, embellish a little? What if he says he has 20 goats when he really only has 13? For this whole system to work, for anyone to believe the story, there have to be rules. Everyone has to be able to trust the numbers. And this right here is the absolute key to the whole thing. Without a shared set of rules, without ethics, these financial stories just become financial fairy tales. A company can look unbelievably successful on paper one day and be completely bankrupt the next. The entire global economy is built on this one fragile idea that the numbers we're all looking at tell a story that's mostly true. In accounting, trust isn't just some nice bonus feature, it is everything. I mean, the difference is just night and day. Ethical accounting tries its best to present a complete and honest picture. It follows the rules, it follows established principles, and its main goal is to build trust for the long haul. Unethical accounting, it does the exact opposite. It actively hides debt and makes up income. It bends and breaks the rules to tell a story that's a flat out lie. And yeah, that deception might work for a little while, but it almost always leads to a painful crisis and collapse. Okay, so we've established that accounting is this incredibly powerful, essential language for business and finance. But here's the next big question we have to ask. Does it tell the whole story? And this is where we have to get a little smarter as readers of these number stories. Let's really break this down. On the one hand, accounting is amazing. It gives you a clear financial snapshot, like a photo of a business at one moment in time. It uses a standard language so we can compare Apple to Google, and it is absolutely vital for making good decisions. But, and this is a huge but, it has some serious blind spots. It can only measure stuff that has a price tag, so it completely ignores things that don't have a dollar value. It can be manipulated. A lot of the time, it's based on what you paid for something years ago, not what it's worth today. And maybe most importantly, it has no way to measure a company's impact on society or the environment. And this really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? Think about what makes a company truly great. Is it just the cash it has in the bank? Or is it stuff like its amazing brand reputation, the fierce loyalty of its customers, the incredible morale and creativity of its employees? Well, guess what? None of that shows up on a typical balance sheet. A factory could be pouring pollution into a river, destroying the local ecosystem, but its financial reports might look fantastic. Right up until the moment it gets hit with massive fines and customers start boycotting. So, if there's one thing to take away from this, it's this. Accounting is a powerful, indispensable tool. Think of it like a lens you use to look at a company's financial health. But it's just that, a lens. It gives you a specific, really valuable, but ultimately incomplete picture of reality. It's not reality itself. Whew, we have covered a lot of ground, right? From ancient farmers to modern corporations. But now let's bring this all right back home because these big ideas, these principles, they don't just apply to businesses out there. They apply directly to you. Whether you're trying to figure out a household budget, save up for a big goal, or just make sense of what you hear on the news about the economy, you're using the exact same principles of accounting. It really is the language of value. And learning to speak it doesn't just make you better at business, it empowers you. It gives you the tools to make smarter decisions in every single part of your life. It lets you take control of your own financial story. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Every single number in your life, every paycheck that comes in, every rent payment that goes out, every coffee you buy, each one is a new sentence in your personal financial story. You're the one writing it. You're both the accountant and the author. So take a look. What story are your numbers telling?